Okay, welcome everyone. Wednesday night, Halacha and Chassidus. This one might be a tad different than we usually do. What we usually do is we take a halachic topic, a question usually, or some kind of general topic, and we explore through the ages, a Gemara, a Rambam, a Rashi, a Shulchan Aruch, and so on and so forth. We try to take interesting angles. We try to bring in as much as I can new and interesting sources to expose ourselves to some more the amazing chachomim and svarim that are available out there. Tonight it's going to be a little bit different. Tonight's shir was prepared in mind with yesterday on the Jewish calendar, which was the 24th of Teves, which is the yahrzeit of the Alter Rebbe, the first Chabad Rebbe, Rebbe Shner Zalman of the Yadi, and the author of the Tanya, and the author of the Shulchan Aruch Harav, or in Chabad circles we just call it the Alter Rebbe's Shulchan Aruch. So the shir was inspired by him a little bit and his name and his accomplishments in life. But hopefully we're going to take a tour, a little bit of a journey through some interesting makayres, some interesting sources in halacha and chassidus that have to do with the Alter Rebbe, that have to do with the Shulchan Aruch, and that have to do with how to answer halacha shaylos, how to answer halacha questions. And the shir tonight is dedicated. Yesterday, also 24 of Teves, in addition to being the Alter Rebbe's yahrzeit, was also the shloshim of the Kedoshim, those who were murdered in Sydney a month ago. You believe it was a month ago. Specifically, I don't know all the names. I have in mind the Shliach, Rebbe Eli Schlanger, as well as Rebbe Yaakov Levitan. I finished learning Mishnayos yesterday. I'm a second Mishnayos, and so the shir is dedicated in their memory, in their schus, Hashem, Yimka, and Dom, God should avenge their blood, and all the others. Again, I don't know the names of everybody. And it's also dedicated to schus for Refuah Shlema for Yehuda Levi ben Manya, who my sons, my wife and I are friends, Chabad in Texas, A&M in College Station, Texas, whose son, probably heard about, was shot. And saving a police officer's life there, and he's now still in the hospital and went through his 11th surgery already. And Hashem should send him a shlemo kreva. Amen. With no further ado, the Alter Rebbe and answering halacha questions. The source sheet is dated 24th of Teves, even though today is the 25th, tonight is the 26th, but I started preparing it on the 24th. The Alter Rebbe's yahrzeit, so I left the date at the 24th. We covered the Alter Rebbe. So source number one is the Shla, as many would call him the Shla HaKodesh, the Holy Shla. The Shla stands for Shin Lam and Hey stands for Shnei Luches Habris, which stands for which is the two. How do you translate it? The Shnei Luches Habris. How do you translate the tablets of the covenant, meaning the Ten Commandments, the Shnei Luchos Habris, that's the Shla. That is Rabbi Yeshaya Horowitz. I think it was Rabbi Yeshaya ben Avrom, I believe. He was born in Prague, 1555. He was one of the Gedolei Tzadikim, one of the Gedolei Chachomim. The Prague counts amongst its distinguished list some of the greatest Rabbonim, the Shla, one of them. And he passed away in Eretz Yisrael in Tzfas in 1630. He's buried in Eretz Yisrael, of course. And the Shla Kodesh says as follows. Says as follows. And I know this not because I'm an expert in the Shla, although it'd be nice if I was, but I'm not. But I know this because the Rebbe quoted this many, many, many times, the Shla. So don't be surprised that I know a random Shla. It's not so random, the Rebbe quoted it many times. It says as follows at the end of the line. Ki bevadai gilgul hamoedim shel kol hashana hine eila mayadei Hashem ein mayadei d'Rabbanan oitainis v'tisha b'av. For sure, he says, all of the gilgul hamoedim, I don't know how to translate that, the occurrence, the happening, the occurrence and reoccurrence of all the holidays through the course of the year, these are Hashem's holidays, whether they're from the Torah, whether they're rabbinic in nature, fast days like Tisha B'Av and so forth. Each and every Yom Tov, each and every holiday, no matter whether it's the Raisa, the Rabbana, whatever it may be, has an intrinsic connection to the parsha of the week that it falls during. Ki hakoil miyad Hashem hiskil, because everything is determined from Hashem. So if Chanukah, which is what he's talking about here, is always during or in close proximity to Vayesh and Miketz Vayigash, always in close proximity to those parshas, that means that Chanukah has an intrinsic connection to those parshas. In fact, there's a famous Basayin, who is buried in Svas, that he has a whole Torah, Parshas Vayigash, connecting the parshas to Chanukah, unbelievable Torah. And anyway, the Rebbe quoted this many times as a lead-in to say that whatever Yom Tov it is, Chanukah, Pesach, Purim, they're always falling around this. Not always the same Yom Tov, right? But it's always around the same. And there must be an intrinsic connection between whatever the Yom Tov may be and that specific parsha. So too, said the Rebbe, that Chavdalad Teves, the Alter Rebbe's Yortzeit, Reb Shner Zalman of Liadi, is always, or I should say, is always either during the week of or in close proximity to Parshas Va'era, which we read this week. Parshas Va'era. So we're going to try to uncover a little bit the connection of the Alter Rebbe to Parshas Va'era and how that leads into the accomplishments of the Alter Rebbe in two main areas, which are the revealed teachings of Torah, the Shulchan Aruch Harav, and the hidden teachings of the Alter Rebbe, which is the Tanya and the other Svarim of Chassidus. We learned, for example, Shabbos mornings from the Alter Rebbe's teachings, Torah Or. But before that, let's take a look in the Chidah, the Shema Gedolim, source number 2. The Chidah we've spoken about before. Chaim Yosef David Azulai, one of the Gedolei Tzadikim from the Sardische world, unbelievable, born in Yerushalayim in 1724. He traveled a lot. I think I mentioned the other week when we mentioned the Chidah that what happens to you when you're the greatest Talmud Chacham in town, at least I guess in the 1700s, what happens to you is they send you fundraising. So he traveled a lot to fundraise, primarily for Hebron, I think, and maybe for other places too. I'm not sure. We're going to come back to Hebron later as well, God willing. And he traveled all over for like 4, 5, 6 years at a time. And I don't know exactly. I think last year, I think we spoke about some of the years that he traveled. It was in Germany, and he was in Italy, and he was in Tunisia, and he was all over the place. Egypt. And he made 2 major trips, and then in 1806 he passed away in Italy. He was buried in Italy, and something like 150 years later, a little bit more than 150 years later, I believe, one of his last wishes was fulfilled, which was one of his last wishes was to please bury me in Eretz Yisrael. But he was buried in Livorno in Italy, so they reinterred him in Eretz Yisrael.
You had to do that.
What?
You had to.
Maybe one day we should have a shir on that. Maybe are you allowed to? Well, the answer is they did it for the Chidah. The short answer is no. Of course, they're not allowed to do that. Of course not. They did it to the Chidah. First of all, he explicitly requested it. It was also done to the Rebbe Rashab as well. By the way, the 5th Lubavitcher Rebbe, who we're going to mention later as well, he was also reinterred. But the short answer is no. You're not allowed to do it. But like with everything else, there's always exceptions. The Chidah says as follows: Shneir. What is the name Shneir? Where did such a it's not Avram, it's not Yitzchak, it's Yah. Where did such a name Shneir come from? So someone sent me up a long article. I didn't read the article. I don't know, a whole academic article about the name of the Shneir. We're just going to go by the Chidah. I'm good with the Chidah. And the Chidah says, Kosev Marshal. The Marshal writes. Who's the Marshal? Reb Shlomo Luria. The Shlomo Luria is one of the greatest poskim, quoted many times.
Was that there?
Yeah. No. Luria was his last name. Shlomo Luria. And he's quoted many. If you learn the Shulchan Aruch, you'll find many times he's quoted in the commentaries and so forth. One of the greatest poskim. So in addition to his Piskei Dinim, he also has a sefer called as Beis Yud Shin Sheni Be Yam Shel Shlomo, in the Yam of Shlomo, in the Sea of Shlomo, which is Shlomo Luria. That's his name of his commentary on Shas. Gittin Perek Dal Simcha Vav. So if you look over there, that he tells the following story. Where does the name Shneir come from? What's the derivation of the name? There was a certain family, a husband and a wife, who were blessed, Mazel Tov, had a baby boy. The problem was, they couldn't agree on what to name the baby. The father of the baby says, I want to name the baby after my tati. The mother says, what do you mean? I want to name the baby after my tati. And they couldn't agree. What do you do? So he says, the Echad Haya Shem Oviv Meir. the father's father, the paternal grandfather's name was Meir. V'shem aviha isha, but the name of the mother's father, the maternal grandmother, was Uri. So you have Meir and Uri, and they couldn't. What father says, I want to name him after my father Meir. The mother says, "What do you mean? I just gave birth to this baby. I want to name him after my father Uri." So what they do? What should we call the child? They couldn't agree. Shalom bayis. What are you going to do? To create peace. Shneir. They called the child Shneir. Kalema Shnei or Meir Uri. That's what the Yam Shlomo says.
Two
lights. Meir is Lashon or. Uri is also Lashon or. What's the difference between the name Meir and Uri?
One is to spread out light.
Yeah.
One is to bring in.
Oh, developing. Meir is to illuminate, to shine.
My son's name is Meir.
Is to illuminate, to shine. Uri means my light. It means like I have it already. One is giving out, one is what you have, so to speak. Okay. But it says Mikol Mokum Nida Shem Shneir Kadman. This story I just told you, it seems that the name Shneir is actually predates that story. I'm telling you, it's the story of the Maisa, but it seems that it's an older name. And he says that Rebbe Yoina Kosa B'Shem Rabbi Shneir. Okay, the name is quoted in earlier sources. Skip a line. Valken Korah Leyelad and Nizkar Shneir. They called this child, this baby, Shneir. The Yishem Zeh B'Oil V'Ramos B'Shnei Moiris Meir Uri. So we have alluded to in the name Shneir 2 lights, 2 oars. That's the Chidah. Now, in Parshas Va'era, look at the letters. Vav Aleph, Resh Aleph. I didn't put it on I should have put it on the source sheet as well, just to visualize. What are the first 3 letters of the word Va'era in the Parsha? Or. It's Vav Aleph Resh. The rearranged spells or. So you see right away in the name of the Parsha is or. What's the last letter of Va'era? Aleph. What is Aleph the Rosh Tevis for? Or. So you have or within the Parsha. Now the name or, the word or, which is spelled out in the first 3 letters, is actually, okay, it's out of order, but it's spelled out. Aleph Vav Resh, spelled out. That's the revealed Torah. That's the Gemara, that's Shulchan Aruch, that's the revealed Torah. And the last letter Aleph doesn't say the word or. Or is only contained within the letter Aleph, within the Rosh Tevis of Aleph. It's hinted to. Or is hidden, so to speak, in the Aleph. You follow what I'm saying? That's alludes to the other type of Torah, the other part of Torah, the hidden Torah.
How's the word contained in the Aleph?
Meaning Aleph is just the letter Aleph.
Right.
It doesn't say or. It just says Aleph.
It's part of
The first 3 letters spell the word or. You could look at it and see, or. What's the Aleph spell? Nothing. It's an Aleph. Doesn't spell anything. Just a letter. But it's the Rosh Tevis, right? What is the function? How does Rosh Tevis operate?
With the apostrophe?
Right, meaning a Rosh Tevis is only the first letter of the word, but it stands for the word. So within the first letter of a word is contained the word itself. So within the letter Aleph, that's the last letter of the word Va'era, we have contained the word or, but the word or is not spelled out, just like the hidden parts of Torah. Kabbalah, Chassidus, the Tanya, the Sefer Torah, or the we learned Shabbos morning. So the Alter Rebbe's name was Shneir, which is his main name, because Shneir is Lashon HaKodesh. Zalman is already, Shneir's second name, Zalman is a Yiddish name. So his Ikir name, his main name is his first name, which is Lashon HaKodesh, which is Shneir, which is 2 lights, which is hinted to in Parshas Va'era, or, and just the Aleph, which is the revealed Torah, Gemara, Halacha, and the hidden Torah, Chassidus and Kabbalah. Now, once we're talking about or, what does or accomplish? What does or do? So let's take a look in source number 3. I believe this is the first time we ever had as a guest in our shir the Mittler Rebbe, the second Chabad Rebbe. Second Chabad Rebbe was Dave Ber, was his name. Shnei Ori, last name was Shnei Ori. He adopted the name. He was the son of the Alter Rebbe. They didn't have last names back in the good old days, really. So what was the Alter Rebbe's last name?
Baruch.
Huh?
Baruch.
Yeah, Baruchovich.
Baruch.
But maybe the Alter Rebbe's first name, last name originally, what they say was maybe Posner, because the family was from Posen. but then he took the name. I don't exactly know. He took the name Baruchovich or something like that because his father was Baruch. Then so that's the Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe's son, Doiber, who was his successor, became the second Rebbe of Chabad. Adopted the last name Schneuri. Schneer. I'm Schneer's son. That's what he said. So
That's how the last name came?
yeah, and that became Schneer's son. Schneuri became Schneer's son.
But the first boy,
But-
the first boy that was Schneer, which
The boy that we read about in the Chidon source number 2.
that was before the Alter.
Yeah. Yeah, way before. Okay, the Mittel Rebbe was known really for explaining his father's chassidus, but at great length. At great length. If you think the Maimorim we learned Shabbos morning are long and take time to work through, the Mittel Rebbe, his son, it just like flows and flows 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 pages like nothing. He also passed in Shilas as well. He was also a Rav. He was a Rebbe. Okay. So what is the function of or? He says this. V'zeula, this is in a Purim mind. V'zeula Yehudim ha'isa oir v'chulu. For the Jews there was light. Pirush. Kihine ha'teira nikra or. Teira is called or. Ukamash shikasuv. V'teira or. Teira or. Teira is called light. V'yesh l'havin lama nikra ha'teira b'shem or dafka. Why is Teira called or? Why is it called light? Simple reason. What do you mean? It brings light into our lives. It gives us light. Achini Pirush Lashon Torah. What does the word Torah mean? Is Hayra, instruction. The word Torah means, and this, by the way, I never took a survey, but I would guess without ChatGPT or AI or something like that, that one of the most common repeated phrases in the Rebbe's Farbrengens is, and I cannot back this up with facts, but I'm just saying, Torah miloshain Hayra. The Rebbe must have said this thousands of times. The word Torah is miloshain hayra. From the word hayra, which means instruction. The Rebbe always viewed every single thing in the Torah. I don't care if it's the most obscure Gemara that you've never heard of, or a pasuk that doesn't have Targum. Either way, Torah is instruction for us. It's telling us what to do. Like it says, your judgment goes forth. Okay. So let's go deeper. What does it mean that Torah is called oir? Torah is called light. Mean or hagashmi. Let's just think. We don't need to get spiritual. Just think about actual physical light, if you could call it physical. There's nothing when you turn on the lights in a room. What did you do to the room? What did you do to the things in the room? Answer: nothing. The table's the table. Whether the lights are on or whether the lights are off, nothing changes. There's an nothing changes, nothing happens in the thing itself that light is shed upon. Rak haderech. But now you have the path. Now you know how to go. Now you know where to walk at night. Right? We take it for granted. You go out on Main Street and there's street lamps. Didn't always used to be that way, right? They used to have a lamplighter who would go around at night and kindle all the lamps at night so people could see in the shtetl. To go at night, you shouldn't fall into a pothole and so forth. You have also the concept of aura of light in your intellect. The light of intellect allows you to see the path, meaning it allows you to differentiate, to distinguish between good and bad, right and wrong. That's why Torah is called Or. Just like a physical candle, a flashlight, which lets us see, which helps us go along the correct path safely without stumbling. So to the Torah accomplishes the exact same thing. The Torah allows us to see where to go, how to go, and what to avoid along the way. That's what the Torah does. Not to deviate the right or the left. That's what it says about the Torah. It's the ways of peace or pleasantness. The path of Torah is pleasant. Why is it pleasant? Because when you have light, which is Torah, you don't fall and you don't step into a puddle and break your ankle. That's why. The Nikra, we had this in Samach Vav on Shabbos this past week. The Nikra Urchus Havaya, Darkei Havaya. It's called the path of Hashem. Torah is a path. That's why it's called light. Yeah, Velochi Nikra Torah Lashon Hayra. That's why Torah is also instruction. Hayra. V'chein or haseichel. Likewise, the light within intellect is meir b'chol davar novach mevubal amu'ur of Torah. It illuminates every scenario where there may be confusion, where things may be unclear, where may be a mixture of toiv and ra, which, by the way, is pretty much everything that we encounter in life has a little bit of toiv and a little bit of ra, and we have to know how to navigate. Torah helps us navigate. This is a work of Chassidus here, but it means this in a very simple way, very straightforward. When we don't know what to do in life, we look in the Torah, and the Torah gives us instruction what to do and what not to do. And if we're not sure, we ask your Rav. We're paskin a shayla. We're going to get to that later. How do you paskin the shayla? We're going to get to that. And if it's a spiritual question, you ask a spiritual Rav, a person who has spiritual insight, who knows the svarim of Torah, knows the right path to approach.
And the Jews are supposed to be the light of the nation.
Yes, absolutely. Because what's the light? Torah. It's us. It's Torah. It's yeah. Gamba was daka b'yoser. Sometimes it can be tough to discern. Sometimes what's right and what's wrong. So Torah helps us determine even to split a hair. The light of intellect, of wisdom, Tevare will clarify, betavdil and differentiate between l'ra, betachlis abir v'avchona azois, with total clarity, with the ability to discern. Just like you see with a candle. So what is light? Shnei, or two lights. Before we talk about two lights, what is light in general? Light, says the Mitler Rebbe, doesn't really change anything. All it does is illuminate what's already there. That's what light does. It just shows you the path. So you can see, nothing actually changed. Let's take a look from there into source 4. Source 4 is Sefer HaErchim, the book of entries. This was meant to be, or it is, an encyclopedia of Chassidus. It was written by Rebbe Yoel Khan, who many people may have heard of, was the famous Choizer, was the one who would memorize the Fabrengens by the Rebbe, and with a team of people after the Fabrengens, because keep in mind, the Fabrengens, the majority of them were on Shabbos or Yom Tov, but you couldn't record it. So instead, they've had Yoel Khan, he recorded it. In his brain, he recorded it. After the Fabrengens, you could see videos of it. Motzei Shabbos, Motzei Yom Tov, they sit down, Yoel Khan and a bunch of a team of the Choizer, those who had if you heard of Yossi Jacobson, Rabbi Yosef Jacobson, people seem to know who he is. He was a chayzer, he was like 16, 17 years old. But there were others, and they would reconstruct the Fabreng. And it was led by Rebbe Yoel Khan. He passed away 2021 in New York. He was born in 1930 in Moscow. His father, Fall Nachman, learned in the first Chabad yeshiva, Yeshivas Timchet Tmimim, in the actual town of Lubavitch. And in 1935, so he was only 5 years old, his family moved from Russia to Eretz Yisrael. And in 1950, he set out by boat to come to New York to learn in 770 with a previous family, Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak Schneerson, who passed away while he was en route. So by the time he came, the previous Rebbe had already passed, and Rabbi Yoel arrived, and a year later, the Rebbe officially accepted the mantle of leadership of Lubavitch. And anyway, Rebbe Yoel didn't leave after that, basically. Stayed by the Fabrengens. And so anyway, he has this encyclopedia. It's 7-8 volumes. It's still in the letter Aleph. So he says as follows. Which we just saw in the Middle Rebbe's Maimer, source number 3. The whole inyan of light is not for itself, so to speak. Which is actually a little bit different than what the Middle Rebbe says, I think. Rather, what is the purpose of light? The whole inyan of light is not for itself. If you don't have things, you don't need light either. Light is only when there are things and people and stuff. The whole function of light is that through light, you can see things that are not the light. Make sense? Light allows you not to see light. Light allows you to see the table, to see the path, to see where to go. If the only thing that had been created by God was light, there'd be no purpose to it at all. No function to light. It doesn't do anything. Light is to illuminate. If there's nothing to illuminate, then light has no purpose. Furthermore, even when you do have different things in the world, table, chairs, trees, people, Main Street, etc., even when you do have different things that need to be illuminated by light, the light doesn't add or change, really, or contribute anything to the thing in and of itself. All it does is reveal what was already there. So now we're going to talk about the Shulchan Aruch. Now we're going to talk about so we gave a little bit of an introduction now about the Alter Rebbe. Two lights. The revealed light, which is the revealed Torah, Gemara, and Halacha. The hidden light, which is the hidden Torah, which is Chassidus and Kabbalah. Those are alluded to in Parshas Va'era, or spelled out. That's the revealed Torah, and or, but just the letter Aleph. That's the hidden Torah. And these are hinted to in the Alter Rebbe's name, and these were his major accomplishment: the hidden Torah and the revealed Torah. Now, I would like to suggest is that even within the revealed part of the Alter Rebbe's life, even within the Shulchan Aruch, we're going to see the light in his Shulchan Aruch as well. That's the goal now. Questions, comments before we continue? Okay. Let's welcome. Here's my prop for today. Let's welcome him. The Chacham. Anything spelled wrong over there?
Yeah.
But that's not how you spell Chacham. Chacham, right? The Sardim, he has, if you couldn't guess by looking at it, he was Sardim. You couldn't guess. Chacham, right? That's how the Sardim don't call a Rav. I mean, sometimes they do, but Rav, they call him Chacham. Chacham means the wise one, the wise person, right? Chacham is Ches Chofmem. Here it's Ches Chesmem, because Ha-Chacham Chaim Medini. Chizkiyahu Medini. I said Chaim, it was a slip because he was ill. He became very ill at one point. Chizkiyahu Medini, born in Yerushalayim, 1834. He became very ill and they added the name Chaim. So he's actually also Chaim Chizkiyahu Medini, or Chacham Chizkiyahu Medini. This is the Sdei Chemed, as he's commonly known. The Sdei Chemed, after an encyclopedic work that he wrote. I actually recently bought it. I recently found it. It's not in print anymore, as far as I know. I recently bought a set, thank God. Interestingly, we'll get to that. So the Sdei Chemed, Reb Chaim Chizkiyahu Medini, born in Yerushalayim in 1834, passed away in Hebron in 1904. Like the Chidah, he also traveled a fair bit. His father died. His father, who was also big Chacham, was sent to fundraise and died in Baghdad in 1853. So he was left as a relatively young man, an orphan without a father, and had to support his family, and didn't know how, in Yerushalayim and Eretz Yisrael in those days was not so many job opportunities exactly. You couldn't go into Bitcoin or flipping houses or things like that. So what's the newest thing is whatever. I forgot what it's called. There's some new business people are doing that's like sketchy, whatever. Anyway, so he moved to Constantinople because I think he was a rich cousin or something that was going to support him. He was a big Rav, so they want to support him so he could learn and answer shilas and whatever. And from Constantinople, I think he was there 10 or 12 or years or something like that. He moved. Some people came to visit, I believe, from the Crimea, part of Russia. Don't ask.
That's right.
No offense to Putin or to Zelensky, I'm not sure, but part of
Ukraine.
whatever.
Part of Ukraine.
Someone from the
actually,
Crimea,
right,
okay,
Part of
whatever it
Ukraine.
is, came to visit, I guess, Constantinople, aka Istanbul, right? And saw this guy's real deal. They offered him a job. Want to come be the Rav in the Crimea? And he said, "Okay, I'll do it." So he went to the Crimea. He was there for 32 or maybe 33 years. I couldn't quite figure, but whatever. 30 plus years he was there as the Rav. And apparently he had huge influence. Apparently it was not a community of Talmidei Chachamim, but he apparently lifted them up and encouraged them and strengthened Shmir Shabbos and strengthened keeping halacha and then just changed the whole place apparently. I mean, just look at him. Like, okay. So, and he was writing, he wrote numerous for him. He actually had, I believe, a son and 2 daughters. His son passed away. He wrote a sefer called Dushman Shas, in memory of a son, called okay, I have it. It's in the set of this. The Stei Chemin, which is the encyclopedic work that he wrote, which basically went through the entire Shas. How did he like? It's not like he just like had like looked stuff up. Like how did he have everything at his disposal? The entire Shas, poskim, rishonim, achronim, like at his fingertips, at his disposal. He wrote the encyclopedia. It's insane. I started reading some of it. What in the world? Who is this person? Mind-boggling. No computers, like nothing. It's not like you had like access to like the YU library or something to look. What did he have? He had Svarim, whatever. In 1899, after serving as the Rav in the Crimea for something like 32, 33 years, he returned to Eretz Yisrael. He wanted to go back to his place of birth. He returned to Yerushalayim. He was in Yerushalayim for a while, and eventually he came to Hebron. He had a yeshiva there. I believe the yeshiva was in his house, and he passed away there. I think that after he passed away, the Arabs tried to steal his body so they could sell him for ransom. It didn't work, apparently. He's buried there in Hebron. If you go to Hebron, I've been to his grave. He's buried there in Hebron. There's also written correspondence. I looked it up today. 2 letters that I found from the Rebbe Rashab, the 5th Lubavitcher Rebbe. I said we'd mention the Rebbe Rashab, to the Stei Chemed, mostly about Hebron. In the first one, he asks the Stei Chemed, but there was some question about Shrita. I didn't quite understand what the question was. There was some issue with Shrita. And the Rebbe Rashab asked him to paskin such a thing, because like basically people are going to listen to him and you should paskin. That was the letter from the Rebbe Rashab to him. And the Rebbe Rashab wrote him about Hebron, because Hebron is very connected to Chabad history as well. Menucha Rachel Slonim is buried there, and the Chabad has a long, long history with Hebron. And there was a Rav there, a Choshev Lubavitcher Rav, more than one. And I guess the Stei Chemed had a very close connection with Chabad. He was not Chabad, again, he was a Svardish Rav. And at some point, I don't know the year, but the Rebbe asked, I don't know who he asked. I did a little bit. I got this article from Kfar Chabad magazine, but I was hoping it would have more information, but it doesn't. The Rebbe asked someone here. It's here's a cover page of the Haggadah by Rebbe Chaim Chizkiel Medini with Im Targum Tatarit. Medaberes befi achei hakrimat. How do you pronounce that? Krimtsakim. Tatar? Is that the language in the Crimea? Whatever. In any event, the Rebbe asked at some point that Chabad Publishing House should publish the Stei Chemed encyclopedia, which they did. I do not have the Kahos version, the Chabad published version. I wish I did, but I don't. I have another one. In any event, enough about him for now. Let's read what he says here in source number 5. This is the Stei Chemed in a section called Kololei HaPoskim, the principles of the Poskim. Shulchan Aruch, it says at the top, Kololei Maran, the Kloli, the principles, the rules of Maran. Maran, of course, is of Yosef Karo, the Mechaber, the author of the Shulchan Aruch, in his Shulchan Aruch and other Sfarim. Shulchan Aruch Yos the Maran HaKodesh L'Hoides Mitoichai. The Shulchan Aruch was written by Maran. Maran, again, means Rabbi Yosef Karo, the author of the Shulchan, also known as the Beis Yosef, for his commentary on the Torah, which we'll mention in a minute. He wrote the Shulchan Aruch for what purpose? L'Hoides Mitoichai, to pass in halacha, to answer shilas, you know what to do. But when? Achar, only after Sha'omad b'sheidesh adin bebeis Yosef. Only after you, quote unquote, stood on the root of the halacha in the Beis Yosef. Meaning that, and he's really referencing the introduction of Yosef Karo to the Shulchan Aruch itself, where he writes that this is all a clear psak halacha, but it's all based on my commentary on the tour called the Beis Yosef, where I went through all the Rishonim and all the opinions and the Rambam and the Rif and the Rosh and the Rebbeinu Yerucham, and I discussed all of them. And I went through all of it. So here he's saying the whole thing, the Shulchan Aruch, which gives you a clear psak halacha, is assuming that you've already stood, meaning you already know and are well versed in the foundations of the halacha as he wrote in the Beis Yosef commentary. Not like this, I'm not sure, not like this other posik writes, that you don't need to know the reasons. All you need to know, other opinions say, is the clear halacha. Look it up the Shulchan Aruch, and if it tells you it's mutter, it's mutter. Tells you it's osir, it's osir. And you can answer someone such a question. Someone asks you a question, I'm allowed to do this? Yeah, Shulchan Aruch says you can do it, no problem. No, that Shulchan Aruch says you can't do. So other opinions say you don't need to know the reasons. All you need to know is what's the halacha. Says the Steichemed, no. You must know the reasons, the shayrish, the roots of the halacha in order to paskin a halacha.
The Shulchan Aruch is like a reference if you want to know. To learn all the sources would take you forever. It's
like a
gives you-
kitzur.
It's
Of the
like
Beit
a
Yosef.
kitzur, and that's kind of what the Beis Yosef writes in his introduction to the Shulchan Aruch and in his introduction to the Tur, which
Not everybody
I
can
quoted
learn all
part
the
of.
sources.
We're going to read part of that actually. A very interesting piece that's I only brought because I think you guys will find it interesting. That the Tur, the Beis Yosef's introduction to the Tur, not to the Shulchan Aruch, but to the Tur. We'll get to that. Kvar Hisigu Rav Achos Rav Ramach Yad Malachi. Yad Malachi is a sefer of Klali Halacha as well, and the Yad Malachi argues with this. No, you must know the reasons. Ken Kosav Maran Chido B'Sefer Shem HaGedolim, likewise the Chido we already had in source number 2, also says he quotes Divrei Harav Yad Malachi Sham B'Chlal Shulchan Aruch is base that you have to know the reasons. And skip down to the third last line of this paragraph. This that it was written in one of the Sfarim she'ein lo moedim min Shulchan Aruch. This that it says you're not allowed to learn a halacha from Shulchan Aruch. Where is he quoting from? The Shamash Tzedakah, a sefer, Harav Shamash Tzedakah. This that he says she'ein lo moedim min Shulchan Aruch. You're not allowed to learn a halacha from the Shulchan Aruch. What do you mean? I thought the halacha is a sefer. I thought the Shulchan Aruch is a sefer of halachis. If I open Shulchan Aruch, what else am I learning? It says no, you cannot learn a halacha from Shulchan Aruch. Nah, tzarich loymar shekavanosi. What he meant was she'ein lo bimenu bilti even b'dvarav shel Beis Yosef. What he meant was you cannot paskin a shaila from the Shulchan Aruch unless you've learned the reasons behind that halacha as written in the Beis Yosef. Ayin hate b'dvarav. Look over there. Next paragraph, Shulchan Aruch, ein lifsek din, you may not paskin a halacha, koidem, before, she'ya'ayin b'divrei HaRab Yaakov Baal HaTurin, u'bebeis Yosef. Before you've read the Tur, who brings many different opinions, we're going to come back to that in a second, the fact that the Tur brings different opinions in the Tur, we're going to come to that soon, in source number 6. Before you've read what the Tur writes, and what the Beis Yosef writes, you may not ask an halacha. Ayin laharav yad malochu b'chol Shulchan Aruch or is aleph b'shem rabbonim bach smeh zara Shem is okay. Quotes the v'zezman rav rashamti ala gilyon mashakosav agoyin marsha b'chidush hagodes. What I wrote down a note for myself. What the Marsha writes in Masechta Soita. We're going to come to Masechta Soita too. In these generations, those who come and pass from the shilas straight from the Shulchan Aruch, they don't know the reasons behind it. They're just reading straight from the Shulchan Aruch without the reason. Right? The Shulchan Aruch doesn't tell you the reasons; just tells you the psak halacha. So those who are passing straight from the Shulchan Aruch without knowing the reasons behind it, if they don't first, before paskening, if they don't learn properly, as he calls it, mitoich haTalmud. That doesn't mean from Gemara. What's matam? Shehu shimush talmidei chachomim. Shimush talmidei chachomim means learning by a Rav the reasons and the rationale behind the halachos, which we'll come to soon in Rashi. The toes nafal b'hayra also. They're going to make mistakes in their piskei dinim because they don't know. It says clearly one thing in Shulchan Aruch, but you didn't realize 1 second. You didn't realize the case that you're answering is not exactly the same as the Shulchan Aruch said. And they are destroying the world. And you have to rebuke them. Yeah.
My question was actually answered. I was gonna say, what would be the problem with not knowing the reason if that's what it says in the Shulchan Aruch?
Good. So I did answer it a little bit, but let's take a look as well. Let's skip source 6 for now. We'll come back to it. Let's learn the Gemara in source number 7. Gemara Masechta Soita Daf Chabes. The Gemara says, "Eichi dami chassid shaita." What is a chassid shaita? A foolish chassid, a foolish pious person. The Gemara gives many different definitions of it. One definition is that see a woman drowning, and you say, well,
Can't touch.
I'm not allowed to touch women. Chassid shaita, the Gemara says. You're pious, but you're shaita. You're a fool. Although there is the Maisa of the chassid shaita that once there was a woman drowning. And the 2 men are on the edge of the water. One man runs in to save her. He swims out there, he picks her, grabs her, picks her up, carries her on his shoulder to the shore, and puts her down, saves her life. Short while later, the other man is like, I can't believe you did that. How she was an attractive woman. Pick her up, carry her like that. The man who saved the woman's life says, me, I put her down a long time ago. You're still carrying her. Okay. So the Gemara, what is a chassid shaita like? That's in the middle of the page in the Gemara on Amud Aleph. Skip to the bottom of the page, picture it. Skip to all the last line of the page in Daf Aleph. Amud Aleph, I mean. Ula Omar. Ula says, Zeh. Now, the next little paragraph there, that's flip the page to Amud Base. Ula Omar, see in the Gemara in the middle. Zeh Shekara Veshana. This is one who's Kara. He reads Tanakh, presumably. Vishana, and he learns Mishnayos. What's Mishnayos? Halacha. Right? Mishnayos are halacha, right? Is that true?
I mean, I guess.
What
else
guess?
would it be? It's just halacha.
You tell me, what else would it be? Can you give me an example of Mishnayos that's not halacha? Pirkei Avos, yeah. Pirkei Avos is the only one of the 60 Masechtas of Mishnayos that's not halacha. I'm not saying that every Mishnah necessarily is, but right? Masechta, which Masechta you learn? You learn Mishnayos now? Chulin, Bava Basra, well, whatever you're learning is halachos. So the Ula said, you know what a chassid shaita is? He's one who's kara. He read, means he knows Chumash, Navi, Ksuvim, whatever. Vishana, and he learned the Mishnayos. He knows the halacha. But what is Mishnayos missing? Explanation. The reasons. V'loy shimish talmidei chachomim. That doesn't mean that he didn't bring a Talmud Chacham a cup of coffee. He wasn't meshamish them. Meshamish means shimush. The way that a Rav learns how to paskin is once he knows the Shulchan Aruch, he sits with a Rav, a practicing posek, and learns how to apply. In what case do you follow this? In what case do you follow that? How do you apply the halachas? The reasoning behind it. It's actually really not what the shimush talmidei chachamim here means exactly, as we're going to see in Rashi in a minute. I'm kind of carrying it to the next step. Let's look in Rashi. On the first line, it says Shakara Mikra. That's the scriptures, right? Veshana Mishnah, aka Halacha. V'lo shimish talmidei chachamim. What does it mean? Shimush talmidei chachamim. It says Rashi, and just there are different opinions about this. Obviously, we're just going to read Rashi for the sake of convenience. It's right here. Keep things relatively simple. Not just to learn what the Gemara says and what's the halacha, but to learn what's the svara, what's the rationale. But taimei Mishnah, mahim, to learn the reasons for the Mishnah. Rashahu, such a person who paskins without knowing the reasons of the halacha, says Rashi is a Rasha. She'ein Tairasei al Burya, because his Torah is not clear. Ve'ein lo manei menu, don't learn from him. Certainly don't follow his psak halacha. Sha'yidei ha'taimim, why? What's the big deal about the reasons? Like you said, if you have a clear halacha in Shulchan Aruch, why can't you just do what it says? Like, what's so complicated? Isn't that what Shulchan Aruch is? What's so complicated? Says Rashi, no. Timing, because when it comes to the reasons behind the halacha, you're going to have this differences sometimes. Is the food forbidden, or is it permissible? Someone asked me today that someone put in non-kosher noodles into a bowl of very hot soup, and the bowl was a ceramic bowl. Does the bowl need to be kashered, if you can even kasher a ceramic bowl? What's the answer to this question?
No. Good question.
No, good question. Any other answers? Come on, guys, we're Jewish here. That's the answer.
Yes.
No, good question. Yes. No, what's the answer to the question?
Depends.
It depends. The answer is it depends. That's the answer. What does it depend on? How hot was the water? How hot was the soup? How many noodles? It matters.
Does that really matter how many noodles?
Absolutely.
Really?
100%, of course.
Back to Al-Bashir.
All right. What is it?
Wow.
Is there bittul b'shishim? Is there not bittul b'shishim? Of course, it matters. So you have different reasons. But that's just the details. That's not even the reasons. And when it comes to financial, monetary laws, lisko is v'lachayim. Does the person is he off scot-free? Does he have to pay? Does he not have to pay? Everything depends on the reasoning. But taris, when it comes to taris, which you don't have the halachos really have taris nowadays, but is it tama? Is it tar? Like we see in many places in Shas, the Gemara will ask, "My time Omer Mar Hachi Mar Hachi." The Gemara will ask, for what reason does he say this? And for what reason does he say this? The reasons are what make the halacha what it is in a particular case. And if you, yeah,
But that's not specific just to Jewish law. Even if you go to secular court, the reason why you have defense attorneys that seem to get the clients off when it seems like the case is so obvious is because there's different perspectives or interpretations of the same type of thing. So it's law in general, not just halacha.
well, it is law in general, that's true. But here, it's not just a different perspective. Like, is OJ guilty or is OJ innocent? It's not a different perspective or like, whatever. Here, it actually changes what the halacha will be based on the reasoning. Meaning, if you have a halacha in Shulchan Aruch and you're like, oh, it says I'm allowed to do it, but you don't know the reason behind it, it could be that the reason behind it actually means that in your case, you actually cannot do it. It changes everything, the reasoning. Omar my benai, sometimes the Gemara says you'll have two opinions in the Gemara, and the Gemara my benai, what's the difference between them? Ike benai, there's taka difference. Difference in the rationale and the reasoning. Such a person who paskins halach without knowing the reason is an orum. He's crafty or something like that. You're going to hear this guy learning. It's like, oh, I know I'm a big Talmud Chacham. I know the halachas. And you're going to think, oh, it must be that he really knows. He must know that he's quoting all the halachas of Shulchan Aruch. He must really know. But he's going to be given kavod like a Talmud Chacham, but even though he's not, you cannot follow his piskei dinim at all. Let's just go to the Beis Yosef in source number 6. It's not directly relevant, but I think you guys will appreciate it. This is his introduction to the Torah, which is printed in the beginning of Chosh and Mishpat section of the Torah. It's fairly long, but I put out one paragraph. Al Kain ani adal ba'alfe Yosef ben Merena harav befraim ben harav Yosef Karo. Zecher l'chai ha'olam haba. What it stands for. Therefore, I decided, he says, basically. I girded my loins. I prepared myself to pave the path. I decided I would write a sefer that includes all the dinim, all the halachas and all the halachas that are followed Bebi'ur shorsheim, with explaining their roots, the source behind the halacha, mitzvah Gemara, and where they're derived from the Gemara. In kol chilukei svaris aposkim ishloi nedar, and I'm going to include. This is the Yosef Karo describing his commentary on the Tur, the Beis Yosef. I'm including all the different opinions. Ishloi nedar, I ain't going to leave anybody out. If you are a great posek, I'm including you in the Beis Yosef. That's what he says. Now, where's the Beis Yosef? It is appended to the Torah. Why not make your own? Just make a separate book. She says no. I didn't want to make it its own separate book. Why? So I didn't want to have to repeat everything. I don't want to write everything over and over again. The Ran says this, and the Rif says this, and the Rebbeinu Yuchim says this. So therefore, I decided, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to write my commentary, which explains all the sources of the halachas. I'm going to attach it to one of the great poskim, Svarim poskim. Who do I want to attach it to? I want to attach it to the Rambam. Why? Because the Rambam is the most well-known posik in the world. So I'm going to attach my commentary to the Rambam. That's what the Beis Yosef wanted to do. So why didn't he? I changed my mind not to attach my commentary, the Beis Yosef, to the Rambam. Why? Because the Rambam only brings one svara. He brings what he holds, how he paskins. He leaves out all the other opinions. Then I would have had to write now, the Rambam is only one, but also the Rebbe Yerucham writes this, and he writes this, and he writes this, and he writes that. I'd have to go through everything. Therefore, I decided to append my commentary to the Tur. Why? Because he includes the opinions of the majority of the poskim. Good. Okay. Let's now go back to source number 8. This is an excerpt from the introduction to the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch, not written by the Alter Rebbe, but written by his sons. Asher Kain, source number 8 on the bottom of page 2. Asher Kain, I'll call Divri Ageres Hazois, Mishmaya Askim al Yidei Rav HaKodesh Hanal. This whole letter that I'm writing to you, that's going to an introduction to the Shulchan Aruch of our father, Shulchan Aruch Harav, the Alter Rebbe. Lachbos Bechebes Mechubas B'Talmidov Limtzoi Ish Asher Ruch Elokim Boy, looking for Harav HaKodesh. Actually is referring to the Mizrach Magid, the Rebbe of the Alter Rebbe. He was searching for his Talmidim to find someone Asher Ruach Elokim Boy, who the Spirit of God is with. There were apparently 4 of the Talmidim that were considered worthy for the job.
The Talmid
of the Mizricher Magid, Reb Dov Ber of Mizrich. And the Alter Rebbe was the one who did it. Lahovin, to understand Lahoides halacha brura, to have a clear halacha, Mosum, deliberate, umasik alibo de hilchasa, and with conclusions, practical halacha. Here's the key words: halacha is b'taimein. That is the chiddush of the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch, is that he does not just write the halacha, but he includes the reasons for the halacha in the Shulchan Aruch. Yeah.
Then how are we allowed to follow halacha if we don't know the reasons for it? Like if we open a kitzur, how are we allowed to say that, this is what I'm supposed to be doing if you don't know the reason?
That's why you ask a Rav.
But not every time you're gonna have a Rav throughout your entire day. So
That's why you go to yeshiva to learn what to do, learn from your teachers, learn from your rabbis. Yeah, I mean it's a little bit of a catch-22. You can't ask, am I allowed to talk after I say Baruch Shamar? No. It says in Shulchan Aruch you can't. Okay, you can't. There's a little bit of a fine line, if you will. When it comes to answering a shaila, meaning something that's not necessarily explicit or something that may be explicit, the application of the halacha requires knowledge of the sources.
So if you know Shulchan Aruch, Shulchan Aruch, you know what to ask. You know that's a shaila.
It's a very good point.
Otherwise, you don't even know there's even a problem at all. But you start to learn halachas. First of all, you know what to do basically, and then you also know what things that might be questions to ask. Or you wouldn't even think it's a question if you didn't learn.
It's a very good point. It's a very good point. We know what to ask. So it's halachas b'taimein. That is the chidush of the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch, and not just the halacha, but the reasoning. And as he concludes the last words of the paragraph, milsa b'taimein. A milsa means a matter with its reason, meaning halacha with the reason. The Shulchan Aruch of Rabbi Yosef Karo does not contain the reasons. In his introduction to Shulchan Aruch, he basically writes that, listen, I wrote the Beis Yosef with all the reasons. Go learn that.
Criticize the Shulchan Aruch because it didn't.
Well,
About the
and
reasons.
no, because he's telling you, guys, you can't really paskin for this. I'm assuming you learned the Beis Yosef already.
And the Shulchan Aruch, Rabbi Karo was Sephardi,
Yeah,
so it doesn't bring any of the Ashkenaz.
correct. There you have on the page of the Ramah, Rabbi Moshe
Ramah.
Isserlis
Right.
on the page. That's right. Okay, let's conclude with source number 9. An excerpt from a Sikha, a talk from the Lubavitcher Rebbe. The right column, the second paragraph begins Der Inyan. Der Inyan von a Shulchan Aruch is zu wissen halacha l'maaseh. What is the purpose of Shulchan Aruch? To know what to do. It's the whole purpose of Shulchan Aruch. It's not that complicated. To know what to do. Or like Tzvi wants to say, to know what to ask. Which is sometimes the smartest person is the one who knows how to ask a question. The answer, he might not know the answer. The answer maybe is easier. Sometimes the one who knows how to ask a real question, that's sometimes the most intelligent person. In any event, the whole purpose of a Shulchan Aruch is to wissen halacha l'maaseh. And the word l'maaseh highlighted. To know practical halacha. What do we do? So if that's the case, then seemingly the reasons don't matter. If Shulchan Aruch says you could do it, so you do it. If it says you cannot do it, you cannot do it. What are the reasons make a difference? The shackle of Ataria, so you don't need to know the reasons. You don't need to know the whole shackle of Ataria, the whole back and forth, the way the Beis Yosef writes in his commentary. Nor blows the maskona from the halacha l'maaseh. All you have to know is the conclusion. What's the bottom line? Like, look it up in Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. What's the bottom line? What do I need to know the reasons and the rationale and then all the back and forth? Leave me alone. Just tell me what to do. But wissen the blows the Allah's psukois on Zayda time, if all I know is the final halachic ruling without knowing the reasons behind it. Number 1, that like we saw in the Stei Chemed, source number 5, you cannot pass in that way. Although granted, as we mentioned, there are those who say you could. Okay, I think it's generally accepted that Rav cannot pass if he doesn't have the background to the halacha. But if this and the blows the halachas psukois on Zayda time, if all you know is the final halacha conclusion without knowing the reasons behind it, is Zayr oifen akim beikir normit kabbalas oil. Then the way we're taking now a little bit of a Chassidic twist to this, a little bit of a spiritual approach. The manner in which you will follow Shulchan Aruch is normit kabbalas oil, just accepting the yoke. Why am I doing it? I don't know, because the Shulchan Aruch says to do it. Okay. Or Shulchan Aruch says not to do it. Okay. Folgt dem Shulchan Aruch und is makayim the mitzvah b'shleimusa. You're following Shulchan Aruch. You're fulfilling the mitzvah perfectly, just the way you're supposed to do. Uvamela other was a mitzvah to doiv tzazav v'chibur. So therefore, if you're following the mitzvah properly, according to Shulchan Aruch, then you also have the benefits of following that mitzvah properly, which is now you're connected to Hashem. The word mitzvah means tzavsa, connection. Aber das leicht nicht bei, but it doesn't shine. It's not illuminated. It's like the room that has the table and chairs, but the lights are off. You're doing everything you need to do. The table is there, the chairs are there. Everything's perfect. You just can't see. It's not bright. It's not shining. So to follow halacha, just because that's what the Shulchan Aruch says, is wonderful. But there's no light. It's not bright. Biz as the Beis Yosef zogt that the Beis Yosef says, like the Beis Yosef himself writes regarding his Shulchan Aruch, where he does not write the reasons. As his Kumpehem Shulchan is meyusur of Sifrei Beis Yosef, that the whole Shulchan Aruch is a continuation of the Beis Yosef. So you need the reasons. The reasons are what bring light. Shnei Or, the Alter Rebbe. Der alte Rebbe, durch Chibra Shulchan Aruch, in an Eufen von Halachas B'tay Mei and Dafkin. And when the alte Rebbe wrote the Shulchan Aruch, not just with a clear halachic conclusion, which he could have done, but with the reasons and the rationale, what did he accomplish? He brought light into the Shulchan Aruch. He combined them together. The revealed Torah, the Shulchan Aruch, and the hidden, the light, the aura, are combined together. He illuminated also the Kabbalah's oil, the accepting the yoke of the Shulchan Aruch. Even practical bottom line halacha needs to have the reasons behind it. Even for people like us, maybe someone who's not even a posek, you're not giving halacha. Nobody's asking you halacha questions necessarily. So what? For yourself to know the reason behind the halacha. So when you learn the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch, you're not just learning the practical halacha. You're also learning what's behind the halacha, the reasons, and therefore you're illuminating, you're bringing light into the base level fulfillment of Shulchan Aruch. Yeah.
I think it was a couple of weeks ago when we were doing the Thursday night learning. So one of the sichos was talking about the a couple of the shvatim that kind of did like I don't know what it's called, Omach, whatever it was called. But what you just said, and that sicha was saying that type of understanding or that type of doing is better, because if you're doing something based on reasoning, the reasoning is limited based on your ability to understand. So that's a little bit different than here, where it's saying that the reasoning is enhancing.
Correct. To do a command to do a command without really understanding is better than doing it with love.
Correct. Now, both of course are true. What do the Jewish people say on Mount Sinai? Nice, finish. Not just nice. Nice will be what you just said. Just do it. Nike, just do it. The greatest phrase from any.
They said nasa first,
company.
so what he's saying is it's also like that's the premise is Kabbalah Soul.
That's right.
But then you have to, it doesn't end there. That's the point.
That's right. It starts with Kabbalah.
And even the Rebbe here is not saying that it starts with knowing, understanding it, or else I'm not going to do it. Like it starts with doing it.
Starts with doing it. Exactly. Starts with nice. It starts with I'm going to do it. Why am I going to do it? Because Shulchan Aruch says. But now I want to bring the light into it. There needs to be a gishma. What does it do when you know the reason for something? First of all, when you know the reason to a halacha, you actually know the halacha better. Because then you understand. Like, here's a common question you get. Oh, Matzah Yom Tov, Havdalah, do I need a candle? Very common question. Well, if you know the reason why we have a candle, Matzah Shabbos, then you know the answer to the question if you need a candle, Matzah Yom Tov. So number one, that knowing the reasons helps you know what the halacha actually is. And helps you then apply it in other circumstances as we're talking, and helps you paskin a shayla, answer a question. Like the noodles in the soup. Well, that's a little bit different because that's just more a question of details, not so much the reasons behind it. Number one. Number two, you remember the halacha better when you know the reason. And number three, what he's saying here, it brings light, it illuminates the halacha. It illuminates the fulfillment of the Shulchan Aruch. Let's just finish the last paragraph. Even practical halacha needs to have the reasons, which is what the Alter Rebbe accomplished. So that your fulfillment of it doesn't say should be with understanding. It should also be with understanding. The baseline, like Tzvi said, the baseline is just do it. Nice. That's the starting point.
Right, it doesn't say you should do it because of the understanding.
All right. And especially like we saw in Rashi, especially if you don't know the reasons, but it's okay. No, Chacham, it's not okay. It was okay in that situation, which was a different situation because the reason dictates that it's Matzah Yom Tov, not Matzah Shabbos, for example. Did that make any sense? So the Alter Rebbe, Shnei Or, two lights, the light of Chassidus, the light of halacha, but in his halachic work itself, he brought light into that work by bringing the reasons to the halacha. So the halacha is not just bottom line, which is great. Bottom line is great. Listen, everybody wants to know bottom line, right? Just tell me what to do. Stop giving me the Rambam says this. What do I do? Tachlis.
The simplest.
Yeah.
You should I do it or can I?
Right. but the reasons are what give light to it. The reasons are the room has the table and the chairs, has everything I need, everything is great. I'm doing the mitzvah just fine. I'm going to get my reward, whatever you want to talk about, right? I'm connected to God. That's the way. Notice in the Sikha, the Rebbe doesn't say you get your schar for the mitzvah, for doing the mitzvah. He doesn't say that. He says you're connected to God. If you follow Shulchan Aruch, reward, there's no mention of reward. If you follow the halacha properly, you are connected to Hashem. Givaldik. Now turn the lights on. Now turn the lights on. Illuminate it. Bring the reason, bring the geschmack, the excitement, the devotion, the meaning. Yeah.
If someone follows halacha just because that's what he's told to do, does that ruin like the status of it being the chachila?
Does it ruin it? No, it's great. It's fantastic. But never.
But it's
Turn on the
not
light.
b'diavad?
Turn on the light. Turn on. It's b'diavad. Shulchan Aruch says it's b'diavad.
With this Shulchan Aruch that it's actually replaced the Beit Yosef for the.
Well, what basically happens,
Or is
which is that's already over time, just very basically, the Shulchan Aruch was written around the year 1500 or whatever year it was, somewhere thereabouts, right? Al Rebbe was in the late 1700s, past 1812. So there are a couple hundred years of more poskim and more svarim. So he was updating the Shulchan Aruch to bring more scenarios, more cases. In certain instances, he paskin differently than other poskim and so forth. And what he really does is bring a clarity to the sugya. He brings the reasons behind it and flushes things out more. Anyway, that's Bekitzer, but we're already past due. Thank you everyone for coming. This year was dedicated in memory of all the Kedoshim. May God avenge their blood from Sydney, Australia, the Shlich, the Eli Schlanger, and Yaakov Levitan, and the others, as well as Lazakis Erefu Shlemo Kreva for Yehuda Leib Ben Manya. Yeah, okay, everyone for coming. See you next week.
Seem to have 10. Yeah.
We have 10.